Fitchburg now. I'm your host, Sam Squalia, and you are watching this on FATV, Fitchburg Access Television, from the Workers Credit Union Studios. Thanks for joining us. Up first, we are talking with the members of the Twin Cities Rail Trail Association, talking about our new rail trail that connects Fitchburg, soon to be downtown Fitchburg, to soon to be downtown Leominster, but currently 3rd Street in Fitchburg to Mill Street in Leominster.
Carter Park, yeah.
Carter Park, yeah. So Benny DiNardo, you're the clerk of the Twin Cities Rail Trail Association, and Dave, you are?
I am a member.
A member of the Rail Trail Association.
I was willing to come on television.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Happy to be here.
I am so excited to ride my bike on our newly paved, 12-foot wide paved trail, 4.5 miles long.
When it's finished.
When it's finished. That'll be great. So it was originally slated to open in March 2022.
Right.
It is now slated to open June 2022. Right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. It's actually probably better, so they can do final plantings and whatever didn't take, they can replace.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to plant in March?
March is cold too.
Right.
You know, it's still
muddy,
chilly and muddy and icy and snowy. So.
And it would be hard to celebrate the opening in March, and less hard in June.
Yep. Yeah. So there's the bright side.
Right.
This is actually an $18 million project, largely funded by federal and state funds, correct?
Right. The two cities put in some money to help take the properties along the edges and compensate the owners for their takings, but it's been mostly state and federal money.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually John Olver, Congressman Olver, that originally got us the earmark many years ago, and I think they've been able to carry it over until we were finally able to begin construction.
What was the original earmark amount, value, like 10 million or?
I should have looked that up before I came.
But they don't do earmarks in Congress anymore. So
8 million maybe?
They stopped doing those in the mid-2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no more earmarks in Congress?
That was supposed to be a reform to make the stuff work better.
Now they just add things at the end of, with hidden in bills.
Yeah,
David's hair wasn't white when he started working on this.
It's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. I remember getting a letter announcing the abandonment of that railroad in, I think it was 1994. And then that's when I found out about the Rails to Trails program, where the government maintains rail corridors by not letting them be broken up, given communities, somebody, the right of first refusal, so that if they wanted to turn them back into railroads at some point they could, and it would provide a recreational access opportunity for if you could turn them into a trail. But then the company took it back. They rescinded their abandonment. And I don't remember exactly, I mean, you could look it up, I guess, but I don't remember when the actual abandonment then was put forward, probably around 2000 or 1998 or
Well, we formed the group in 2004, so it was sometime around there.
Yeah, I remember Larry Casassa telling me in like 2017 that he had been working on this rail trail for 20 years.
I never thought it would take this long. But
we had periodic meetings, and it all seemed so fanciful.
Yeah.
The company was asking, $20 million for something that our appraiser said was worth 1.8 million, and so we were so far apart, and there just didn't seem to be any real community interest in developing this sort of trail. And then it just kind of all came together, and
then
finally a reality.
Other trails in other communities started to gain traction, and people from here started to go there to ride the trails, and
that's right. Remember
luckily, the Baker administration in Boston really likes this trail. They don't want trails just to be in wealthy suburbs. So, like I rode the Northern Strand this Fall, which goes through Lynn and Everett, similar communities to Fitchburg, and it's beautiful. It's really nice, and it takes you all the way up to the ocean in Lynn, and they see the same benefit in communities like Leominster and Fitchburg, not only for recreation, but there's a lot of businesses along the way where employees could use the trail. People that want to take the train could connect to the train station and commute to their jobs in Boston. People from outside the region could take the train just to ride the trail. So there's a lot of good reasons why this trail is important to the state as well as to the two cities.
Oh yeah, and not only connects us for recreation, like you said. Like I'll be able to take my daughter on a safe off-road trail to ride our bicycles, because right now riding on the streets, it does not feel comfortable around our areas. There's no separated bike lanes, whereas a completely separated bike lane, something that we could maybe go on a Saturday and go take our bikes to go get ice cream, you know, or if there's, and you know, as the trail is open and more people are using it, more businesses will tend to grow around the trail, because you'll say, ooh, we can take the trail and we can go to Longhorn. I'll meet you. I'll meet you at Longhorn.
There's a lot of small restaurants along the way that could easily put something out their back door, and they're right there at the trail.
Like the paddock has a patio in the back, you know. So when the rail trail is running, maybe they can focus the patio, so you could sit at the patio and watch people ride by.
When I was in college, another century ago, one of my first jobs was to work at the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission in the summer. Oh, yeah. And I would commute. I would ride my bike from Leominster to Fitchburg every day, and I was riding on Route 12. It was dangerous then. It's even more dangerous now. There's very little room for a bicycle there. So that's one reason why this is such a nice project. It'll be an improvement for the cars as well as for the riders. That there's less of that conflict with drivers and cyclists.
There's also this rage that car drivers possess for bicyclists that I don't quite understand. But there's this, I don't know.
Tell me more about this rage.
Right? You know it.
I'm not familiar.
I'm sometimes a cyclist and I'm sometimes a driver, so you can get annoyed at cyclists sometimes. They don't always do what you're expecting them to do. But yes, there's some drivers get very impatient. And a lot of people have asked, like the intersection at Monoosnock Road, that some of these in Bemis Road, they're not exactly the safest intersections right now. What's going to happen when there's all this bike traffic as well? But the state has told us they're going to improve the signaling there and have pedestrian activated lights. So if people obey the traffic signs, it should be.
We have a picture of the pedestrian activated light.
No, I didn't see.
Can we throw this up on the main screen? So this is at Water Tower Plaza in Leominster, and so this is an example of a rapid flashing beacon.
Right. It doesn't. It's not a red stop sign, but it's just a warning. As people are going pretty slow at that point anyway. They tried to put most of the crossings at existing intersections, so you don't have a car stop at an intersection, make a turn, and then have to stop again 10 feet later. That could get annoying for people. So at that intersection right there, the trail is going to swoop down and cross at the street.
Yeah, and where it comes on to Hamilton?
Hamilton Street, right.
You know, someone was asking me, why does the trail do this big loop-de-loop at the intersections? Well, so that when you're approaching it, you don't just drive right through an intersection and not see it on a bicycle. Right. You're forced to stop, and it makes everything safer.
Right.
Can we throw up a map of the full rail trail up on the screen so we can just talk about the route? Thank you. All right. So there was a big long map at the what's the website? Twin Cities?
TwinCitiesTrail.com.
TwinCitiesTrail.com. Right. There's a very large detailed map that you can zoom in. But right here, you can see in the red line there, you can see it goes from 3rd Street in Fitchburg all the way to Carter Park near Sookies in Leominster. Yeah, and that's phase 1. Eventually, phase 2 will involve a 22-foot high ramp on somewhere near
They're
First
not
Street
sure how
in
they're gonna do
Fitchburg,
that.
how it goes over the rail,
Right.
and then it's going to
It's
head
got to go
down.
over the river and over the tracks.
Yeah, over
in
the
Fitchburg.
river and the railroad
Right,
tracks,
right.
and then it'll connect to Main Street. But
Eventually.
And
We're-
they're still working on the design
Yep.
aspects, and it keeps changing, and it'll be interesting to see what the final form of that takes.
yeah.
Right. When you get into more congested downtowns, there's a lot of landowners, a lot of extra issues that are less difficult in other stretches of the road.
Yep.
Just takes more time. But at least they got something started instead of waiting for the whole thing, everything to be wrapped up. I mean, eventually, that little piece in Leominster, the holdup there is that the railroad still owns that piece of land. They haven't given it up yet. The city is about to make another offer to them. They've gotten a new appraisal.
Yeah.
But there's a big trail being constructed across Massachusetts called the Mass Central Rail Trail. It follows an old rail line
Yes.
from Boston to Northampton. This trail could connect there by going down to Sterling. If it just keeps along Route 12, then that would open up. You could ride from here to Boston, or you could ride from here to Northampton, which would be great for people.
Perfect.
Right.
And that's really the future goal.
Right.
Dave, I know we were part of the Fitchburg Greenway Committee, which is
Right.
part of the Trails Vision Committee, which had, there were many discussions about how we can plan for the future to connect
Right.
our future trails with our existing trails, with future potential trail networks,
Right.
and connect to a larger scheme of trails throughout the state
It
of
can
Massachusetts.
feel frustrating when you're working on it, but this happens all over the country. You just do little chunks at a time and eventually stitch them together, and then you get something really beautiful. But you have to do it one step at a time. It's hard to do it all in one swoop.
Yeah. And, throughout the country, because there are many rail trails throughout the country
Right.
in addition to just Massachusetts.
Right.
And what they have found is when the trail is open, it gets extensively used.
Right.
People are using it. Mothers and fathers are walking their children. They're pushing baby carriages. Kids are out there on skateboards and bicycles. People are walking. People are jogging.
Right.
People are walking their dogs. All sorts of people all along the trail.
Right. David and I went on the trail just the year before construction started, right? We were a little concerned that some parts of that trail are hidden from the road, kind of densely forested and dark. So we were behind St. Bernard's Church. We drove there and we were going to drive our car down that route before they started working. Immediately, a police officer saw us, and then he offered to escort us through. So we got into followed his cruiser and drove down there. And it did feel a little unsafe because Route 12 is up here and the trail is down there. But now that they've opened it up a little bit, it was hard to realize that you're very close to the Nashua River at that point. But now that some of the brush has been removed, you can see there's some beautiful dams on the river right about there. And you can easily envision in the future creating some nice picnic spots for people down there to take in the scenery. And it's a little valley that you don't realize exists in Fitchburg, but it's a nice, pretty.
And it goes right
scenic-
along the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the nice wooden fencing
Right.
that they put along different portions of the trail, and behind the old Halloween costume
Right.
world.
That's the area we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that is nice and open now
Right.
and very visible.
Right.
In that area.
Now I think that area is going to be a huge improvement over what it's been in the last 10, 15 years.
Well, so this conversation right here, potential for future additions to the trail, is a perfect segue to the new press release that came out from the Twin Cities Railroad Association about your matching grant
Yes.
opportunity.
Right.
Why don't we talk about that?
Well, my uncle, who lived in Fitchburg all his life, he grew up in Fitchburg. My mother's family's from Fitchburg. My father's from Leominster. So like I said, I can swing both ways, except on Thanksgiving Day when I usually root for Leominster.
for
but let's not talk
Fitchburg Red
no,
Raiders?
no. So he introduced me to cycling when he was a kid, and he had a very big job. He was an engineer for Stone & Webster and traveled around the world building big projects. But he always lived in Fitchburg. He lived with his parents. He never got married. After he retired, he volunteered here, and he was a camera person for FATV for several years.
I love it.
And he got really involved in the local community. So when he passed away, I was fortunate enough, he left me some money. And so we put part of that into a little account to find some project that would be meaningful to us. Didn't think it was going to take 20 years to do it, but in the interim, that fund grew substantially while it was sitting there waiting for this.
Nice.
So a piece of that was donated recently, $50,000, to get the Trail Association up and running. Our goal, we know that both communities are kind of strapped for cash, and we've had nice meetings with the DPW people and the police, and they're supportive, but they're thinking, we can barely do the work we're supposed to do now. We are adding some extra.
4.5
so
miles.
our thought is to try to raise money to help with the maintenance. And also the other reason for doing that is we don't want the experience along the trail to be different in Leominster and Fitchburg, where one community is really involved picking up the trash, plowing the trail if we want it plowed. And you cross an invisible line, and suddenly you're in a different. You want people to experience it as one thing.
It's the Twin Cities
Yes.
Rail, not the Fitchburg Rail and the Leominster Rail.
So our hope is that we can raise enough money that we can take on some of the basic maintenance. Not any big capital improvements would still have to be the cities, but if we can organize trash pickups, there's a lot of volunteers that have already. We had a teacher at the high school who was ready to get like 50 kids from Fitchburg High to help us do a cleanup last 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But then the contractor said, while it's a construction site, we really can't have anybody else on the trail, so we had to put that off. But St. Leo's in Leominster has also approached us because they're right on the trail, and it's a big anniversary for them. So they want to be involved in the trail somehow. So I think we'll be able to energize the community to help with the maintenance, so it doesn't become a burden to the cities. Of course, we're not police, so the two police forces will patrol occasionally, and we'll be in contact with them about any safety issues. But things like picking up the trash, mowing the strips along the side, perhaps plowing.
That was one question everyone keeps asking. How is the trail going to be handled in the winter?
Right. Well, it's a good. We haven't.
We're still
fully decided yet, but we're looking for feedback from people, and we do ask periodically on the Facebook group, what do people think? I mean, it is a city. It is paved. It has transportation benefits as well as recreational benefits.
Certainly.
So it could very well become a commuter path, not just a recreational path. So it being not plowed in the winter could be an issue for people getting to their. Sorry, I thought I made this quiet.
Oh boy, that might happen to me too.
I know myself, I live in Fitchburg and I work in Leominster, right near the end of the rail trail.
Right.
So I cannot wait till, once the rail trail connects to downtown, then it'll be really easy for me to commute. Right now I'd have to go up Water Street and then go over there, which isn't too bad. But if I could ride my bike all the way from my house to my work.
Right.
You know what's nice about rail trails? They're flat.
Yes.
Yeah.
No hills. Trains can't go up hills. So rail trails are flat.
Yeah, so some communities like to keep the snow on in the winter so people can snowshoe or cross-country ski or something. But I don't know if those uses would be that. It's such an urban area that we think that there will be a demand for plowing. But we would like to hear from people about whether they think it should be plowed or not. And whether we can
we'd like
raise
donations from people too to help us pay for the plowing if we decide to plow. Because we're a little concerned about our budget, and there's only a few of us volunteers, and we're going to be reaching out for more people to volunteer at some point in the future once the trail's been turned over to the two communities. And there's going to be maintenance issues with, graffiti removal or things we haven't even thought of. Vegetation trimming and
someone spray paints the fence and someone has to go paint
or
it.
damaging
that will
the
happen?
fence, where you don't want to burden either of the communities with some minor repair, but it's important that you maintain an aesthetic, that we want this to be a really nice, attractive thing for the communities.
I'm certain it will.
So what do you think? Do you think it should be plowed in the winter? Do you have an opinion on that? Or have you heard from people asking?
The majority of what I have heard is, how are they going to plow it in the winter?
How are they
because
going to plow
they
it?
should plow it in the winter. That's the general consensus.
Right.
From what I've heard.
Right.
Even the dog park in Fitchburg, people want that plowed to go to the dog park,
Right.
and because the dog park gets crazy use in the winter.
So we've solicited 3 bids from local contractors now, just to get a sense of
How
what
much
it would cost. Yes.
and what the
And
reliability
how much,
would be.
Yes, how much would we have to raise to do that?
That's a great start.
Right. And we're negotiating agreements with both cities. And both mayors have been very cooperative so far to see who's going to handle what on the trails. So, so far it's all been working great.
I'm very excited to see the progress and hear about it, and I'm very excited to start going on it in June 2022. Hopefully that's when it opens. But in the meantime, how can we go and follow what's going on? How can we learn about updates to the trail, or how can we donate to match the grant?
Well, there's 3 principal ways to connect. One is the website, twincitiestrails.com, and that has a big donate button on it if you want to donate. The Facebook page is where most people go to find out what's happening. There's an Instagram page that has been slow in getting activated because there's not many pictures yet to show. I think it'll be full of pictures of people using it once it gets opened. And we have a mailing list of several hundred people that will be hitting up shortly, including yourself.
I'm on it.
So people can send us through the Facebook page or their email address if they want to be kept up to date, or they can just follow us on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not a real Twitter user. So.
We are preparing like a page, a brochure, and a graphic thing that we're going to be sending out to all the abutters on the trail, and also people that we get on a mailing list, giving a brochure, like a 3-fold brochure explaining who we are and what we're doing, why we need money. And also I wanted to make sure we say that when you donate to the trail, it's going through the community foundation. So they're our fiscal agent. It's a tax deductible donation. They'll be handling all the money, so it gives a certain amount of
we don't have a huge amount of overhead. We have no staff and stuff, but the community foundation has been really helpful in helping us with the finances and taking the money in and investing it for us.
This is so exciting. I can't wait to see the trail open.
I can't wait to see you on the trail.
We can't wait to you can take a group ride. All right, so you can go to twincitiestrail.com to learn more information, and check out the Twin Cities the Twin Cities Rail Trail Facebook page to follow for updates. All right, thank you so much, guys, for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
I can't wait to see you riding the trail. All right.
I can't wait to see David riding the trail.
All right, thank you. Hi, thanks for tuning back in, discussing Fitchburg Now with Sam Squalia. I'm here with Martyn Royce, who is doing a Guinness World Record attempt for the MBTA, trying to visit every MBTA station in a world record amount of time.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's as crazy as it sounds, but there's a lot of people in the past who have been attempting runs specifically on the T, just for the subways. But nobody, as far as I'm aware at least, has attempted to set a record for visiting all the commuter rail stations in a record time. Naturally, because of the mileage involved. It's such a massive, sprawling network in comparison to just what the T operates on the subway. So I'm just extremely excited for it. Very much looking forward to it.
Yes, prior to learning about your Guinness World Record attempt to visit all 132 stations of the MBTA.
As it stands currently, yes.
Yes, I didn't even realize that the MBTA went all the way to Wickford, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, it's that's by quite some way the furthest outreach on the network. I mean, people locally will appreciate how far Fitchburg is out from Boston in comparison to perhaps other lines on the commuter rail. But no, I believe Wickford Junction's 67 or 65 miles out from Boston, so that's quite some track. That's going to take up a fair chunk of a time on day 2, I'll tell you that.
That'll be a long day heading to Rhode Island.
Yeah, that it will.
So, all right, you are from the United Kingdom.
I am,
and
yes.
you originally worked for the Chiltern Railways?
Yeah, Chiltern Railways.
Yep.
From November 2008 through to March 2020, prior to my emigration to here, I worked in their operations planning department. So, to put that another way, I wrote timetables and rewrote timetables if needed to be done for, say, special events. Our line ran through Wembley Stadium, and the line that we operated on was immediately adjacent to it. So any time that there was like an England soccer match or the NFL International Series playing there, we would have to significantly rewrite our timetable. And 11 years in the industry over there meant that I just wanted to keep that going here as best I could when I had the opportunity to.
Onto a different rail.
Yeah.
So you came over March 2020, right before the pandemic.
Right before, yeah. It was an incredibly stressful time for my wife, then fiance, and I, because I was originally due to fly out on my marriage visa after everything that went on in terms of border shutting. Had to rebook my flight at the last minute to leave the country in time and not with any kind of restrictions on borders. And we're still married on March 27th, 2020 as planned, but understandably in a much, much smaller ceremony than we would otherwise have hoped.
Yeah.
But I'm here and I'm happy. I've never been happier. So I'm just glad it all panned out, and not least now working back for the commuter rail again, being back in an industry that I love. I'm just thrilled.
Yeah, well, we're here in New England, we're adaptable. So you're learning to adapt.
Yeah, I've learned that already.
So you used to work for a trains company in the United Kingdom, and now here you are. You work for Keolis.
I do.
Which manages and operates the MBTA
That's
trains.
correct. Yeah.
And so you enjoy trains.
I do.
You like the trains.
I do. Yeah. For me, it's about the geography of rail networks. It's not necessarily what takes me there. It's what I see and what I feel when I get to somewhere, and the journey in between. I'm one of those people stereotypically that you'll just see me looking out of the window all the time, thinking like, wow, cool, look at that. And I never tire of that, and I never tire of being able to go somewhere and just sit down, relax, and take a day as it comes, take a journey as it comes, and the curiosity of wanting to learn more about this network. Because I've worked for Keolis for 10 months now, and there's understandably only so much you can cram in that time to learn. So this is as much a learning opportunity for me as it is something quite nuts and fun.
A fun challenge.
Yeah.
So I took this screenshot from your video.
Yeah,
you did it. So Martyn has done a couple of videos on Facebook explaining what he's doing. And, what's this? Oh, here, can we pull this up on the main screen? Let's show everybody at home what the MBTA line looks like. Here's a map. Does this look accurate to you here?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of, the MBTA has a lot of different lines going all the way from Haverhill to Rockport to Wachusett Station here in Fitchburg, all the way to Wickford Junction in Rhode Island. And you plan to ride all those routes in a kind of, you have a planned, pattern, or you're just going to wing it?
Yeah. I've drawn up what's wound up being the 5th draft since I started planning this properly planning it about 3 or so months ago. It's it's just been a case of trial and error from that point. You just set out all the timetables, all the schedules in front of you and be like, right, let's see what the first train in the morning is. And then, right, what time does that get into South Station? Where can I go after that? Oh, there's a train in 10 minutes that takes me down to Greenbush or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just develops from there on and there on. And as I say, the one that I'm coming up with is the 5th incarnation of it. So it's taken a hell of a lot of work to get to that point. But what it's wound up being as, or what I hope to execute on the day at least, is on the morning of Monday the 28th of February, so a week on Monday coming, I will start off on the 2nd train of the morning out of Forge Park down in Franklin.
Forge Park in Franklin, that's where you started.
So
Where's that?
Is there.
Oh,
That
okay.
one. Depart there at 6:12 a.m. I could actually fly through the entire thing if you like. It'd probably take about 90 seconds to absolutely whiz through the map if you like and show you exactly what the plan is.
All right,
Right, let me try.
let's do it.
I've rehearsed this and gone through this in my head so many times now, so if I make a mess of this, I apologise. Okay, so start off at Forge Park, then go to Reedville, change trains at Reedville for one of the local stopping trains that goes via the Fairmount line, go into South Station, from South Station to Greenbush, Greenbush back to Quincy Centre, down to Middleborough Lakeville, back up to Braintree, down to Kingston, all the way back then into South Station. Walk from South Station to North Station, North Station up to Haverhill, Haverhill back to North Station, out to Lowell, back to North Station. Then take the Orange Line to get me across to Back Bay. Back Bay along here to Needham Heights. Needham Heights walk, about 2.5 mile walk there from Needham Heights to Wellesley Hills. Take the last train of the night from Wellesley Hills to Worcester. Got about 4 hours then in Worcester. This is, I think, 12:37 the last train of the night gets into Worcester.
So take a little nap in Worcester.
A little bit of a nap somewhere. Yeah, I've got arrangements and a sleeping bag. That'll do me nicely. Just that and coffee, I'll be absolutely fine. First train of the morning out of Worcester's 4:15 on the Tuesday. I take that back to Back Bay. From Back Bay, that's when I go down to Wickford Junction for the huge trip.
Second day.
Yep, second day. Down to Wickford Junction, up to Canton Junction after that. Change them for this little tiny line that goes to Stoughton. Stoughton, back into South Station. Walk to North Station again after that. When you get to North Station, then you go up to Rockport. And at the moment, there's a long-term replacement bus service that goes between Manchester and Rockport. So when I get to Manchester, that little bit is done by a replacement bus, but it's actually booked in the schedule, so that has to be done. Rockport then on that bus, same bus back to West Gloucester, West Gloucester back to Beverley Depot, Beverley Depot up to Newburyport, Newburyport back into North Station, and then the great big celebration. Last line, this was by fluke that
Ending
I did
in
it like this.
Wachusett?
Ending in Wachusett. I didn't even mean to. It wasn't like,
I
I want to
to
finish this in Wachusett. But the way it all panned out, the way the timetables go, that actually wound up being the best thing.
Fitchburg's the great finish.
And I'm due to get back into Wachusett on the Tuesday evening at 8:08.
8:08. All right, this sounds very specific. And from my experience, sometimes, I don't know, I had to run to the train and I missed the train, you know, or sometimes, one time a train was on fire and I had to walk. What if there are delays?
After having done this first, oh, hello, it's gone. No, once I've done those first couple of legs, the one from Forge Park to Reedville and then into South Station, for instance, if I then know that there's a problem, say at Quincy or JFK or somewhere on one of these individual lines, that's when I've started to draw up contingency plans to think, right,
Ooh, plan B.
Do I go somewhere else first? To an extent, you can write that down, but otherwise, you can't do every eventuality because you're just going to have branches and like thought processes going off absolutely everywhere. So there are contingencies on it to an extent, but time will tell how well it goes.
All right. So we have the pandemic, right? And so some stations have been closed, and otherwise there are some stations that aren't. Because I was reading Wikipedia on the MBTA, and it says there's 141 stations.
Yes.
But currently there's 132 that are open and available to visit.
Correct. Yes. So as per all of the 12 little booklets, pamphlets, whatever you want to call them, in amongst all of those, there are 132 different stations, those which we currently operate to, and therefore those which count towards the record attempt. Which goes without saying then if any station were to reopen or a new line were to open, then obviously any effort after that would supersede it, and I'd have to start all over again if I wanted to get it back.
But for the 2022 available stations, fastest world record, Martyn Royce.
That's me.
I like it. I like it. So, what's your plan to eat and sleep? I don't know. Entertain yourself while you're riding the train? You got a couple of books you're reading?
If I can fit time in, I'll probably take a book or two with me. I'll make sure I'm well stocked up on coffee. I know there's a decent amount of opportunities when I change trains where I've got maybe anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes to just go and grab a coffee, bite to eat somewhere. I know that the first time I go between South Station and North Station on day one, I've got about an hour and 20 minutes to do it. So by the time I rock up at North Station, then I'll have plenty of time to get some sustenance. Much needed. much needed.
So the record attempt, right? Are you have any concerns about not being able to complete it in your allotted time?
For how much buffer time, if you like, I've got in the second day, not necessarily, because the train that takes me to Wachusett that gets in at 8:08, there's still about 4 hours after that.
For more trains.
For more trains. So if I, for any reason, drop behind or miss a train on a certain line, and then one of these contingencies come into play, or I think to myself, right, I need to go here instead, and I wind up at Wachusett a bit later, so be it. That's the absolute ideal, to get back to Wachusett at 8:08, but I appreciate that it's not all plain sailing sometimes on the railroads, so so be it.
When you're relying on other people.
Maybe to an extent. I know my colleagues in Boston are right behind me on it, and they've already said that if I need any kind of inside information or up-to-date train running time, they'll be able to text me and say, right, this train at Wickford's going to be about 20 minutes late. You might want to change your plans. And I'll be like, right, okay.
You're going to be on MBTA Twitter.
Yeah.
Following. What's the what is it? MBTA alerts or?
MBTA_CR.
CR.
Yeah.
What's that stand for?
Commuter rail.
Oh, commuter rail. Yeah. Because I follow the Fitchburg on Twitter, and there's a lot of Fitchburg references on the commuter rail.
There are. Yeah.
So, are there certain rules that you could follow? Like, if you're like, oh, I don't want to walk to this station, can you take a cab?
At least by stipulation of this record attempt, you can't take road transport, and that typically is the case for any event that you can't take non-public transport. So, I know that attempts that have been made on the subway before, you're able to take buses between stations. By stipulation of this, I can only take trains.
The bus if it's the only option.
There are no instances where I need that on there. There's only 2 places on the entire journey that I have where I need to use the orange line. There very likely won't be any buses on that route at all.
I thought from Beverly Farms
I beg
to
your pardon,
Rockport.
yes, but the difference with that is that is essentially that's a commuter rail service rather than just an outright MBTA service.
Right.
So on a technicality, that is a train because it directly replaces what would otherwise be a train service. And we've had a fair few replacement buses in Britain in my time, and I've worked on the ground when they're operating. So
yeah, in the past 2 years for Wachusett from Fitchburg station to Boston on the weekend, you had to take a bus from
as far as
Lincoln or Littleton.
Yeah, and then change at Littleton and then go into Boston from there.
Yeah. So we're used to it.
Yeah.
We accept.
Yeah.
We accept that. And now, what if there is a snowstorm on February 28th that causes massive train delays?
If there is a snowstorm, then I do have a contingency plan in place to do the attempt on March 14th and 15th. If that's the case, then I'll just have to cross that bridge when I come to it and reanalyze what I do and how I do it, whether or not the exact same thing would take place, whether or not I'd have to rejig some times or locations here and there.
Maybe do it on 2 different days?
Possibly, but I'd sooner not do that simply for having to do it back to back, because the way I want to set the record is by from train number 1 through station number 132.
Consecutive.
And yeah, so I don't really want to burn a 24-hour period in between it.
Yep.
At the moment, what I outlined then is due to take me 37 hours 56 minutes.
For 37.56, not 38.
No, 37.56. Because breaking 38 hours just sounds great. But no, it's 6:12 a.m. from Forge Park, day 1, 8:08 p.m. we'll choose it, day 2.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Can we throw up the flyer that has Martyn's information with the Instagram and yes. Can we throw this one up on the main screen? There we go. So you can follow Martyn's journey on Instagram at Royce on the Rails. Hashtag Royce on the Rails. And so you'll be updating us with live video, with pictures on the Instagram page, Royce on the Rails.
Yes.
And you are also doing this a charitable donation opportunity for the American Cancer Society. Can we put that in the main screen too, the second part? So all donations benefit the American Cancer Society. Now, why are you doing a fundraiser for the Cancer Society?
Twofold. Currently, my mother-in-law, Karen, also a Fitchburg resident, is coming towards the end of chemotherapy for breast cancer. And thankfully, fingers crossed, everything's going very well with that at the moment. She has her final course coming up next week, then a brief break after that, and then continues on with radiotherapy after that for a 7-week period. So on that count alone, it's been a very dear cause to me. But I also lost a cousin to bowel cancer, Carl, back in March 2018. And he's the kind of person who would have loved a challenge like this. He was very like me, very similar person to me. He was inquisitive, he was challenging, he was thoughtful, he had this friendly streak about him, and he would be following this, I think, every single minute of the way. It was just in his nature, and it was a shock to all of my family to lose him, and not least at such a tender age. So this is for both him and for my mother-in-law and for anyone else for whom cancer is a part of someone's lives. And I know that's a great many people. So
oh yeah, cancer sucks.
So yeah, that it does.
Yeah.
So I wanted to incorporate them and incorporate a good cause, and not just make it all about this curious British guy that's going around on the trains locally and be like, oh,
nice,
seen? Yeah.
Nice tribute opportunity.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted it to be more than just that, so hopefully that's what it'll be, the legacy of it.
Can we put this back on the big screen again? No, the other one with the QR code? Yeah. Can we put that back on the big screen? So our viewers at home, if you take your phone out and you put it up to this QR code and you take a picture, then it will send you right to the link where you can donate to support Martyn's journey and the American Cancer Society in that same donation. Yeah. Right? All right, great. So this is happening February 28th to March 1st.
Yep.
So make sure you follow at Royce on the Rails on Instagram.
Yep.
And you can follow the hashtag Royce on the Rails.
Yes.
All right. And is there anything else that we missed, Martyn?
I don't think there is, honestly. I think obviously a lot will come out while I'm actually out on the ground or on the trains. And yeah, it's going to be, I don't expect anyone to be following it like every single step of the way, because that's a long, long old trek. But yeah, any support that I can get, charitable or just emotional, morale boosting, being like,
good job,
yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, it's, I haven't been excited to this extent about something for a long, long time. I kind of wish it was Monday tomorrow. I just want to get out there and I want to do it, and might spawn more things in the future. I love what the railroads are to people here, and now I love what they are to me as well. So I can't wait to get started on it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on and telling us about this. And I'm excited to check it out and follow your journey on February 28th through March 1st, ending at Wachusett Station. Maybe we'll be
That's
there
the one.
with some balloons at 8:08 p.m.
Yeah, bunting, maybe like a little buffet or something, or just
a cake, just some flowers.
A box of Joe on the corner table or something. I'm going to need coffee at that point, definitely. Someone brings a box of Joe along, perfect.
All right, great. Well, thank you for coming on, and we are going to take a short break. And we are going to meet with Charlene Kennedy. She is the director of a new theater production from the Forge Theater.
I remember when.
Fitchburg was the smallest town in the area, but by 1835, it had grown to be the largest town. By 1840 and 50, most Fitchburg residents had become abolitionists. Another early industry in Fitchburg that still continues today is scythe making. Women used to have to spin yarn and weave cloth themselves, but now it was being made in factories, cutting down and exporting its wood to build cities up and down the East Coast, and of course, for making paper. Starting in the 1800s, the population becomes much more diverse. Fitchburg Machine Works expanded widely.
After World War II, Main Street was lively.
Excellent opening move. We played this
opening lines for the Bishop and the
many
Queen.
times. 10-year-old Alice Lee. Let's see a photo of Alice Lee.
So she plays age 3,
Okay.
and we were thinking mainly it's to make Luft, they call
Yeah,
it,
Luft.
German for air.
At the age 8, he was also able to play blindfold, but most of his exhibitions were where he had sight of the board. And he usually played between 15 and 20 plays. Yes, I think taking with the Queen. How did Carissa respond to Bishop C4?
She plays knight f6, attacking the pawn, Jennifer's pawn.
Welcome back to Discussing Fitchburg Now. I have Charlene Kennedy. You are the director of this new show from the Forge Theater, this new theater production. Theater
yes.
production, No Place to Go, stories from a pandemic.
Yes.
And you're also the managing director,
Managing director of the company.
Forge
Yes.
Theater itself.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Our pleasure, my pleasure.
Good. So the Forge Theater, let's talk a little bit about what the Forge Theater is.
This is its 4th year, and its mission is to help foster and develop new works. And it's driven, well, it was driven initially by a lot of people who were connected to Fitchburg State University. And as that relationship continues, so that's why the productions are on the campus. And it's a wonderful connection for a young company to have. The resources, the facilities. So a lot of the people that began the company were recent graduates of Fitchburg. many playwrights, actors, directors, designers, and it's grown from that nucleus to include people beyond a campus connection. So I don't have one, for example, other than connected to the Forge.
Uh-huh.
So
it started kind of as a Fitchburg State University
that's
theater
my understanding, yes.
alumni and
Yes.
students, and it's kind of branched out, but it still is very much connected to Fitchburg State
Absolutely.
University through
Yes.
its some students and alumnus and the Kent Recital Hall, which is where the
Right,
many
it's right
of
on
the and also at the McKay
Yes.
Theater, there's
Yes.
a lot of productions that are there
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But it's open to community members. So it's not an exclusive or limited group in any shape.
Right.
So
Great. So I know we've talked about a few Forge Theater productions in the past.
Oh, okay.
And the scripts are written by individuals, and then the story is and then the screenplay is created from that, and then it's all done. It's all done by the community members.
yes, stories from the pandemic. It was my belief, and I hold on to it, that when we go through something like the pandemic, one of the means available to us as a society to understand it are the artists that are involved. So if pieces are written about life during the pandemic well after the fact, then our perspective changes. So we put out a request to area playwrights to submit something now. So we had a good number of pieces submitted to us, and we have chosen 10. They are either a short play of maybe 10 minutes, a scene from a longer play, and monologues. And so what we have is a program that covers a wide range of responses and situations to living during the pandemic. And most of these were focused on when the height of the pandemic and that confusion of what happens tomorrow, what is it going to be like, and we were really housebound. So yeah, the program covers quite a range of responses, emotions, situations.
Oh, that sounds like a fascinating compilation of different people's experiences of the
Yes.
pandemic, and then portrayed in different ways.
Yes.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds really cool. Even though at this point I just want to forget everything that happened in the past 2 years, and so this will remind you. But it won't be from your perspective.
Right.
It'll be from the perspective of many different other people, which that sounds really
And
fascinating.
we can certainly identify with. One of the plays, for example, deals with 2 nurses early in the pandemic, and they have agreed to work at a larger hospital that they have never worked at before, and their anxiety before they go in for the first day of work. Another is going to the grocery store early on when there was the one-way traffic, and
Trying to find toilet paper.
yes, and trying to find any of those things that all of a sudden there was a rush on curry powder or bananas, and it gives the perspective of in that particular play, it's a couple that's at the store, and one has been the customary shopper, the other, I'm dying to get out of the house, I've got to go somewhere. So they go to the grocery store together. It's creates some tension. I'll leave it there. So there's a great deal of humor, but there's invariably something that we can identify with as individuals, whether we experienced it personally or not.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Can we put the main the main flyer up on the screen, and we'll talk about when this is happening. So this is No Place to Go, Stories from a Pandemic. And this is Friday night, February 25th, and Saturday night, February 26th at 7:30 p.m. at Kent Recital Hall at Fitchburg State University, 367 North Street. The price, there is no cost to attend. However, they ask that donations are welcome. And you can find more information at theforge.ink. All right. So masks are required
Yes.
to enter Fitchburg State University.
And people will have to sign a form indicating that, you know, it's not so much contact tracing, but it's, yes, I'm vaccinated or that kind of thing. And we need to abide by all of the policies that are in place at Fitchburg State University, hence the masking. Everybody that is participating in the production has been vaccinated, has been, if possible, they've received the booster shot. The performers will not be masked while doing this, but there will be ample distance between the performers and audience members. Audience members will indeed be masked.
So Friday night and Saturday night, you have 2 opportunities to go see this production.
Absolutely, come to both.
Yeah. So the next, let's talk about the next theater production. Are there any more plans
Yes.
coming down the line?
The next target is actually a full production of a play pertaining to climate change.
Climate change.
Part of my hope when I agreed to take on this position was that we would explore artistically hot button issues. And certainly living during the pandemic, there's a lot going on. With climate change, boy, if we don't recognize that there's a lot going on with climate change, that maybe I want to experience it in my lifetime, but my children, my grandchildren certainly will in ways that I won't. And I don't know what we'll get for a production because this will also be new.
So it's not fully created yet.
That's
but
correct.
But the goal is to have a production on with the subject of climate change in
Yes.
some way.
Your guess at this point is as good as mine, but yes, it will be pertaining to climate change. And as I said, that also will be a new piece. We have put out requests for submissions from area playwrights, and we have a deadline of that for submissions to close in April so that we have ample time to read and select. And then hopefully during the summer, we'll begin to actually work on that production.
So if you, if someone watching is interested in participating, they can follow theforge.ink.
Yes.
And updates will be there. Is there an email list?
And the Forge has a Facebook page.
Facebook, The
and
Forge Theater
The Forge
on Facebook?
Theater on Facebook, and yes, and audition notices and any publicity pertaining to The Forge is available there. Absolutely.
Great. All right. So, but the current pandemic, production
Is a pandemic.
is all about
During
the
the
pandemic. No place to go. Stories from the pandemic, and the byline here is: despite the pandemic causing many of us to feel isolated, we are united by one collective experience.
Yes.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't escape it.
No, we can't. All right, Charlene, is there anything else that we should add? Anything we might have missed that you want to bring up?
Bring a friend, come along. All donations of $1,000 and up are greatly appreciated, but we'll take less.
But we'll take less. I like it. Start high, aim high.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and thank you for watching at home. You've been watching Discussing Fitchburg Now with myself, Sam Squalia. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Discussing Fitchburg Now on FATV, and you can join the Discussing Fitchburg Now Facebook group to learn everything that's going on in Fitchburg, everything you wanted to know and more. All right, we will see you next week.